Hey everybody, welcome to part 2 of the X-Carve build. All this was assembled during the part 1 video. I don't know if I had any videos since then, but this starts off with belting, so it's going to get interesting here real quick. This goes to the motor for the Z. We're going to be putting that in there somewhere. So I will be pausing. You may see me staring at the computer thinking for reading and trying to figure this out. It looks like, it shows pictures of 3 different belts there, and so I'm assuming I'm probably going to have to cut this. No, I don't know, because this is one part open-ended belting, so I'm kind of sure I'm going to have to cut it because I only see 2 ends. So if you ever get too carried away there, so the little note there, you're going to need some scissors or something to cut this belting because it's just one long belt, and it looks like here you're going to need 3 of them, which makes sense. I guess you'll need 1 for each side and then 1 to go across there. So let's get to it. I'll try to move the camera a little closer so all you see is this and you can see it a little bit better. And yeah, let's get to it, guys. Okay, here's a pause moment here. You just saw me put the spindle in here and kind of poke it in here, and here's why. The instructions tell you to push the router into the spindle until the yellow button just clears the bottom of the spindle. Well, reality is that's basically as far as it can go, because, and you can probably barely see it, I looked through the viewfinder there, the yellow housing of the router here, the back part has this little raised section where the label's at, and it makes contact with the back plate here. So it cannot go any lower, and hopefully I didn't try to push it too much. So hopefully it's still vertical. I'll have to check that later. But that's a little note for you to, don't try to cram it down, because I wanted the button a little bit more visible, because that's what you use to press to change your, it holds the collet here so you can change your bits. And I would have liked a little more clearance there, so I was trying to stick it down, and then I noticed that. And I think I read about it or heard it in another video somewhere else. So yeah, it's not going to go any further than that because of the housing hitting the back plate. Maybe that's something they're going to fix in 4.0. I don't know. So the belts went on fairly easily once I sat there and read through the instructions this time instead of just looking at the pictures. if you read through the instructions, they are pretty good. Basically, remember I told you the little nuts that slid in here, you have two, one on each end, both for each bar, and the belt clip is going to attach to those clips, and then you have a belt tensioner bolt on this side. So what they have you do is basically, with it in place, just barely tightened there, just barely on, you pull all the way back until it's really tight, and then tighten this bolt down so it's in place. And then you can use the belt tightener bolt to tighten it even more. Get a little banjo sound there. I might be able to get a little bit more into that. We'll see as I get going. And then you tighten down the nut to the clip there. You did cut the belt into 3 pieces, and if you don't get it exact, you do get a lot left over here. So I assume I'm going to go ahead and clip some of that off. You probably will end up clipping it all the way back, but I'm not going to do that yet. Until I get it going, I'm sure that's what I'm going to do, because it can tuck down into the groove there and be out of the way. So that's where I'm at. We got the 3 belts in. We got this motor for the Z motor in and belt here. And basically, you can pull this tight. I put the little Allen wrench in there and just kind of use a lever to pull it a little tighter and then tighten those down. So all 3 belts, Z motor, Z belt in. The spindle is in, router. So next step, wiring. Yay! So let's get into wiring. Okay, we're going to take a break from there, but we got the X and Z motor wiring, X and Z limit switch, and if you bought a Z probe, little Z probe thing, this is a plug for it, and it all goes in this part of the chain. That's where we're at right now. Couple notes here. I got confused. I have to go look at the pictures, but when I first get this chain apart, it tells you to take one end off it, and if you got it doesn't tell you which end. You got to look at the picture, and I guess it really doesn't matter which end, because just make sure you get it right when you do the chain, because that end you pop off, you're going to attach to the drag chain bracket installed earlier. You're going to screw that to it, and then you're going to take the chain, and with all the tops popped off, you're going to feed the cables through it. They don't tell you. They basically just say feed it through the chain. You got to make sure you feed it through, starting with the side you did not pop off. And now think about it, that's kind of obvious, because that's the top part up here. So you feed that through, and once you get it all through, snapped in, you're going to reattach this end, and then it curls over, and then this side is going to be attached to one of those Z or chain brackets that you installed earlier. Now again, they don't tell you which screws to use. They've been really good through this to sell you. Use the 8mm screw. Use the 12mm screw. This time, it says just attach. Let me scroll up to it. That's that. Yeah, okay. Attach the drag chain end to the drag chain bracket on X carriage. Doesn't say what bracket screws to use, but I'm using my head, I hope. You have the shorter flat heads, which you use to attach the bottom one. I'm going to assume those are going to be used again. The two left over are going to be used to attach this other end to a bracket. So you have this package of 12 millimeter flathead screws, 6 of them, and then you have the 6 nuts, which again they kind of show it in the picture, but they don't mention it. So I assumed I'm using 2 of the 12 millimeters and 2 of the nuts, and I attached it to this bracket up here. So that is done. And then I attached the other end back to the lower half. Next, you're going to be installing some zip ties or whatever. But I'm going to take a break, eat some lunch, and go play some Fortnite or something. So we'll come back here momentarily. And I can smell it. We're getting to the end here soon. All right, another quick stopping point and a couple quick comments here. After we got everything wire tied here per the instructions, the Y2 motor, which is the long cable, is just wire tied up to this point, and then everything's wire tied to this point here. It tells you to put this bracket on, and it doesn't really, it says put it to an extrusion beam or whatever. And the picture to me is a little bit vague, but eventually I figured it out. It doesn't really come out and tell you where to put it, but figured it out. It goes here, and you want to put it with this bent part down. Another thing it isn't quite clear, a little confusing, is it doesn't distinctly say to break off this end piece like you did with the other chain there. But if you're looking through the pictures here, that's after you wire tied everything, you see it right here, kind of mounted there. But yet, and see, it's even more distinct, it's right there. But it tells you here, gather up the wires, feed them in the chain, which I have not done yet, which I'll do in a minute here. But it says do not attach the drag chain yet. It's on the next step. So if you're doing this, you might be kind of confused, about this piece here. I went ahead and took it off. The next step is the sideboard. If you guys aren't doing the sideboard, you do your own thing. But I'm going to go ahead and put my sideboard on for now since I have it. And then once I get my table built, I'll decide how I'm going to get rid of it or if I'm going to keep it. But it shows down the steps here because you're wondering how it's going to attach. You got the screws here, and here's the nuts. What it's going to do is you're going to slide in a couple of those nuts again right here into the beam on the sideboard after you get everything together here. Way down here, it finally comes up and shows you them here. Right here, I'm pointing with my mouse. And you're going to slide those to that, and then you install the drag chain clip there. And it looks like in this step, they're actually showing the chain as one piece, not taken apart yet. It doesn't really matter. It might be easier to take it apart, attach this piece, and then attach the whole drag chain to it. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. I'm going to go ahead and do all these steps here for the sideboard. And then the next step will be the controller. So we'll get that chain all connected and the sideboard on. All right. All right, another quick point that, I don't know, check it out. Nowhere did I find in the instructions when it tells you to attach the drag chain to this rail, does it tell you where to do it? Kind of looking at the photo and seeing the logo faded in the background. I kind of positioned it somewhere. And so what I did is I actually kept these screws loose here so I can move this, slide it back and forth. And I redid these wire ties, or at least these two, and I made them looser so I can pull some more slack. If you move this more this way, you can pull some more slack, because once I got this all in and figuring this is going to attach there, I'll need a little bit more slack. The plug barely comes out, and so I haven't gone that far ahead in the book to figure out how this is going to work out. So what I'm doing, and I kind of recommend, is keep these two screws loose here, and you might have to turn this wire tie holder, and keep these zip ties loose so you can move it and pull some slack either way. And then once it's all in, you can go back and tighten everything up. So now onto the sideboard. Okay guys, I'm running low on battery, and I'm running low on fuel, but that's everything in here. The next step is the X-Carve, so I'll probably get to adjust these cables to the length a little bit better. Looking at it now, if I want to put the controller inside, it more than likely means I have to extend the cables. So I mean, I'm not ready to do that now, so it's going to stay mounted to the sideboard until or such time I decide I want to do that. Couple quick pointers again. There's a bar, this bar here. I left the nut and the angle bracket loose on each side so it can slide left to right here. That made it easier to get these nuts in place. In fact, that's right. And screwing the drag chain to that bracket down there. When I had it tight, it was not lined up, so I made sure to loose again. So I can just go underneath there and I'll lift it up and tighten those anytime. And again, there's no mention in the instructions about mounting this top piece to here. It doesn't say what screws to use. In fact, at the end of the page for the chains, it said do not attach them, we'll do that in the next step. It doesn't talk about the top one, it talks about the bottom one. So again, I assumed the longer of the flathead, the 12mm flatheads, I still have 2 left. And then the nuts, the M5 nuts there. So I use those. If I get to a point down in the instructions, those are needed somewhere else, oops. But I think that's what goes there. So again, I need to loosen up this wire tie a bit so I can pull the wires tight and get them in there. And then I'll tighten everything down when I'm all done. So I think that was it. If you're not going to use the sideboard, I assume that you just go ahead and put your drag chain to the bracket there and you figure out how you're going to support that, and you're going to put your X-Carve wherever. You saw me put in some screws just like I did to the waist board underneath. I think this one I got in crooked, which is not very good because I think that's where the controller is going to mount. But anyway, that's the next step. So I'm going to go charge up my phone, and I'm going to go put some fuel in my body, and maybe we'll get some more done tonight. If not, we'll attack it again tomorrow. Alright, quick point here. When you're installing the power supply to the X-controller chassis, if you're following the instructions, for one, all these little parts here, bags that come in a bag for your in the box for the X-controller, none of them are labeled, so it makes it a little bit harder to figure out which is which. Now, following the instructions, you come down to the point where you're putting the power supply and mounting it into the bottom holes. One, it tells you to line up with a label. There is no label, at least not on mine. But it says using the M4 by 8mm button head cap screws, attach the power supply to the mounting holes. Okay. Scroll up on this page and it gives you the bill of material. There are no 8mm holes. And how come there's only 2 left? Okay, that's even another boggle the mind here. Because there's supposed to be 8. There was 8 in the bag a second ago. Anyway, but there is no 8mm screw. There is an M4 6mm, which came in a bag of 6, which is for our bag of 8. I used 4. I have 2 left. So now I'm confused. Uh-oh, I may have to go to the store and find some more screws. But there were 8 there. I just somehow lost 2 screws. I don't see how. I started to try to use these, but these are actually M3 6mm. So you get a bill of material here, but none of these are marked. So what happened to my other 2 screws? Anyway, I'll cross that bridge when it comes. Okay, I forgot to turn the camera back on, but I got a couple things done already. I took the emergency button and got it mounted to the top. I don't know if you saw it, but I got the controller board put in and attached to one of the flat ribbon cables and the power supply cable. What's the kitty got there? And then now I was working on getting the buttons installed to the front plate. I got the USB set connected to the front plate. And what I want to point out here is the instructions show the bag of these plastic standoffs. Then it shows 8 of these M4 6mm screws to attach to both sides. Well, in my kit, instead of the 8 screws, the standoffs have a threaded end on it and a plastic nut. So put the plastic nut on the PC board side so it stands off there, and then use the 4 screws you have on the front panel to attach the buttons and the power indicator to it. You don't want to twist too hard because plastic threads can strip there. So now we're getting into wiring up and attaching the front panel and stuff. So let's get back to time lapse. Here we go. It's basically done. I still have to put the dust collection on it, but I'll do that after it's all tested and calibrated, which is the next step to basically connect it up. I need to square up the Z-axis. I use this, but I want to get a better square. And up to the plate there, it's just a hair off, so I'm going to do that tomorrow. I went up to here, yeah, it's just a hair off. So I'll do that tomorrow, and then I'll connect the computer up to it and power it up. This is about all I got out of the power cord. I can probably squeeze out a little bit more through there. So I'm going to get a power strip or something to put here so it'll plug it. Even that's hard to bend. I have to take this thing off to get it to plug in, or I'll get it plug in sideways. I don't know. And then route the plug for this to that as well. So, but there it is. I got this. I have to snip those wire ties up there. And I'll probably put a couple more wire zip ties in there to kind of bundle that up a little better. I left this top one undone, and I might even just, there we go, pop it off. It gave me some more, and I could probably pull this a little bit more and get a tiny bit more out of it. But otherwise it was kind of curving in and then going in. And I think this is going to be easier on it. So I'll leave that off. And not much to it. So I might have the end of this video doing its first carve, or extra piece. Actually, I was missing this piece because when I tipped it over it fell out. I couldn't find it, so I left on the centerpiece the little corner bracket there. I left one screw out so I can get in there later and put that back in. That was the least vulnerable place for it. So, like I said, I was saying, this may be the end of the clip, and if it is, you'll see me exit out, or I'll end it with it actually doing something. It'd probably be better. So, but that will be tomorrow. It's getting close to bedtime, so that's what I'm going to do. So, I'll see you guys in the next clip. Hey guys, so that's it. You saw in the last clip there, I was carving out a project you can find on the Inventables website. It's a tool caddy that holds all the clamp pieces and bits and your caliper and the router wrench. So I thought I'd do that, and you can see a couple clamps, bump stocks that I carved out of it. So overall, I say the instructions were, I give it a 9 out of 10. They were pretty good. There's a couple, as I mentioned throughout the video, there's a couple little places I was a little confused, but the instructions were really good, and it wasn't as bad putting together as I thought it would be. Yes, there were a lot of parts, but if I just hammered it out, I probably could have done it in about 6 hours or so, you know, less than a day, but I did it over a course of a couple days because I had, you know, orders to get out and stuff to do out there as well. But I've carved quite a few projects out of it since. And I'm quite happy with the project. I'm quite happy with the X-Carve. It does a great job. I haven't had any problems with it. Well, I have snapped a couple bits. You know, I have had a couple issues, and it's a learning curve. I am learning. And I've already placed order for some better bits from Tools today, and I'll probably order some of the cheaper bits from Inventables just to have them on hand for emergencies. But I am overall very happy with the purchase, minus the little mix-up in the shipping and customer service there. But it's great. I can't compare it to other CNCs because I haven't used any other ones or the big expensive ones. But for my purposes so far, doing 2D carving has been pretty easy to pick up. I'm starting to learn Fusion 360 to do tool paths and do a little more 3D carving. I hope to get that going here shortly. So overall, would I recommend it? Yes, I would. Anyone who wants to get into CNC routing, I think it's a great tool for beginners up to intermediates, advanced. Again, I don't know about the big
CNC machines like Jay Bates uses. So I don't know how to compare the two, but I think it's a really good machine. So with that, I hope you guys enjoyed the build. I hope you'll click like. I hope you'll subscribe if you aren't already, so you can see future projects and other things I show on my channel. And hit the bell if you want to get alerted to those videos. And leave any comments and questions down below. And with that, say goodbye to Mango there sitting on my packing material. And I will see you guys in the next video. Have a great week.